Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic and so grateful to be here with you guys today. And yeah, let's dive into the book. See, I was asked if I could pick a part of the book or a line for you guys to share on, but I'm like, I want to share on it too. And so if you have your book to hand, amazing, grab it. If you don't worry about it. And if you're like, well, why are we doing this? I don't like this. You can take it up with Maureen because it's her fault I'm here. So that's really the takeaway. And, and so, where we're going to be picking up is on page 53. And we're going to dive into the second full paragraph right at the middle of the page. And really what I want to talk about is that leap from bridge to shore. What I want to talk about is how we acquire faith. And so it says, page 53, middle paragraph, when we became. So it says, when we became alcoholics crushed by a self-imposed crisis, which I will say, it's a little rude to call us out at 7 a.m., you know? A little early for that sort of shenanigans. Self-imposed? Rude, but accurate. A self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade. And to postpone is to put off, and to evade is to avoid. And we could not do that. To be an alcoholic is to be crushed by this crisis I can't get free of. What does it mean to have this crisis? Well, we're in the chapter We Agnostics, which is focused on the second step. So I have to pull from the first step and an understanding of what alcoholism is. And then the first step, we learn two primary symptoms that separate the alcoholic from the non-alcoholic. Now, the first symptom that alcoholics have is this allergy of the body, and I'll tell you what it looks like for me. You see, I take a drink and I experience something. Now, this isn't quite what they're talking about with the allergy of the body, but I want you to know what I experience. I experience... You guys know what I'm talking about? I experience that sense of relief and release. I experience a calm, the ability to be okay in my own skin. Man, you see, I take a drink and I get a solution for life. Now, it'd be great if that was all it did for me. That would be great. All done, no problems here, we good. But you see, I take that drink and I feel that effect, if only that effect lasts a moment. And it's interesting because I will sell my soul for a moment, for a sense of relief, a sense of ease and comfort. But you see, I take that drink, I get that effect, and it's like a switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. You see, I take a drink and it demands a second. The second insists on 4. And the fourth screaming at me until I've had 8. And the 8th drink will not relent until I've had 16, and so on and so forth. You see, what happens is the inability to control the amount that I drink. That leads me to cross these lines in the sand I said I would never cross. To do these things I said I would never do. I don't know about you, but my life became one that was absolutely unrecognizable to someone like me. I hated who I was. I hated who I became. And that is one symptom of alcoholism. The inability to control the amount once I start. But the other symptom happens when I stop. And you see, I put down the drink and I say with a little bit of self-awareness, alcohol is a bit of a problem in my life. Not a whole lot, but a little bit of self-awareness. And I say with everything that is in me, I'm never going to drink again. And what happens to me is a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, I get a thought. And that thought happens in my mind. And that thought is a lie, but I believe the lie. And what that thought is this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I just got to get it out of my system. My problem was that I was drinking with Canadians, but we're hanging out with some Americans today. It'll be different south of the 49th parallel, or it looks like if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. I'm going to kill myself anyways, so why don't I take a drink? It looks like a thought that is on me all day that goes, take a drink, 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 until what little willpower I was able to muster is inevitably eroded away. And just as much as it's that, it is the suddenlies. I'm out there living my life. I don't want to drink. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. And suddenly I have a drink in my hand and I don't know how it happened. And those two symptoms create this crisis. And the crisis that I cannot put off, and the crisis that I cannot avoid, is that I need to stay sober. The allergy of the body means that I can never drink again. The allergy of the body means it is not safe for me to drink. The allergy of the body demands sobriety. But the obsession of the mind means I will drink again. The obsession of the mind means I am doomed to return to that first drink, despite the fact that it is ruining my life. I have to stay sober. I need to stay sober. I want to stay sober. But I cannot stay sober. And the crisis that is the looming, that is the inevitable, that is the impending first drink, the relapse that is going to happen sooner, always sooner than I think it does, that is the crisis I find myself in as an alcoholic. And that is the hopelessness we talk. That is the unmanageability. That is the powerlessness that we talk about. That is the fertile soil where hope can be planted. So when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? And it's like, girl, it's 7 a.m. You're going to call me out and you're going to post some heavy theology on me? I haven't had on my morning coffee yet. That's what you're saying to me. I have not had on my tea. So we are not fully caffeinated. We get what we get. And if we get upset, we can take it to Maureen. That's the takeaway. But what happened is earlier in this chapter, we answered the question, is it possible that there is a power greater than myself? And what happens, I don't need to believe in a power. I just need to believe that a power, that there could be a power that is greater than me. And in that moment, we pause and we reflect. I paused, I reflected. And I came to meetings like this with people like you, people who were sober, people who were happy before 9 a.m. And I can't tell you how miraculous that is. I'm not a morning person. You know what I mean? They were sober and happy at the same time. They had a light on in their eyes. There was a peace and a hope that pervaded their spirit. And all I needed to believe is that they had better things to do than get up before noon and lie about their experience. Could there be a power greater than myself? And I just admitted that alcoholism was one. And this is the second step question. God is everything, or else God is nothing. And so just because it's early in the morning, let's reconcile that. What I'm asked to believe, is it possible that this power that I don't know, that I don't like, that I don't believe in, could this power be more powerful than my alcoholism? Could there be a power in the universe that is more powerful than the thought that I have that takes me back again and again and again to the first drink? Is that possible? And again, I cannot deny what I see before me. Alcoholics who have recovered, alcoholics who have found the solution, alcoholics who are happy and sober at the same time. I cannot deny their experience. And I can ask myself, and I can phrase it like this. I'll do this with responses. I'm like, is it possible that the spirit of the universe could be a little bit bigger than your rinky-dink problem with booze? You know, I kind of softball it for him. And so, but what I will say, and so we can cross that barrier. The second step is all about, can I believe a solution exists? I don't have the solution. I don't know what it is in an experiential level, but I believe it exists, and that is all that is asked of me. But it asks me this question: God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? Now that is the question where we have to take that leap from bridge to shore. Now I'm going to dive into the next paragraph, because I find it's a paragraph that we don't often talk about because it's a little like confusing. It's like, what does it mean? Let's avoid it, right? But before I do that, I want to make this question as simple as I want to answer the question for you. So spoilers, I'm going to spoil it, no spoiler warnings. Here's what it is. When we talk about God is everything or else he is nothing, God either is or he isn't, what is our choice to be? What I want us to do is I want us to reflect upon our lives. And you can ask yourself, and you don't have to, any of this sort of stuff that I'm doing, audience participation is consensual, reflecting on your life, consensual, relating, even listening, consensual. You don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. But what I would ask is that if we're struggling with this, that we reflect upon our life. And so many of us know that by only seconds and inches, we are alive today. And if I had in my life any experiences where I should not be here and alive and sober, and I am by seconds and inches. Seconds I did not deserve and inches I did not earn. Is that my lived experience? And one of the other things that we can do, and if you want to, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. But if you want to, you close your eyes and bring into your memory a time where you have felt the presence of a power greater than yourself. I live by the Rocky Mountains, and there's something that happens as you drive out and the mountains emerge before you. And it's just struck by the humility and the majesty, my own humility in the face of the majesty of the Rocky Mountains. Have I ever sat and saw the stars and been taken by the majesty of infinity and my finite existence in this infinite universe? Do I know what it is like to hold a newborn in my arms and see the universe in their eyes? Have I had any moment where I felt a peace and a presence in a situation that, man, that wasn't my peace, that wasn't my presence? How did I navigate it? How did I get through that? Have I had any of those experiences? And I don't know too many people that'll say no. But if you say no, what I would ask is, can you believe that there are people here today who have? And if I can believe that, that means that I cannot say that God is nothing, because I've already found some experiences, not ideas, not intellectuals, but experiences of this power in my life. And I cannot say God is nothing. And if God is not nothing, God must be everything. And if God is everything, God is. Does that make sense? And that's how I can reconcile that question. Spoilers, but that's what this next paragraph is going to help us do. It goes on to say, arrived at this point of God is everything or else God is nothing, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. So there it is. Can I believe that there is a solution? Can I believe that there is an answer? And if I am thoroughly convinced of my step one experience, that I will drink again, it creates the necessity for a solution, which again is fertile soil where hope can be planted. It says we couldn't duck the issue. And I was trying to duck the issue, man, and it's early, but I'll tell you, this is probably the stupidest thing I will say this share, and that's probably a lie, because I'll probably say stupider. But if you're ever struggling with the idea that there is, some of you know what's coming, if you're ever struggling with the idea that there could be a loving God, that there could be a power in the universe that cares about you, just remember that ducks' feet are orange. They're orange. There's no reason for that whimsy. What a delightful little happenstance. You know what I mean? Only a loving God would do that. So that's my little tangent when it says we couldn't duck the issue. And it says some of us had already walked far over the capital B, capital R. And we talk about these capitalizations. These capitalizations are synonyms for God, or words or things that we have put in the place of God. So this bridge of reason towards the desired shore of faith. And so what is this bridge of reason? What is the bridge that has taken me from the land of hopelessness, which is my step one experience, towards this new land, this land of faith? Well, that bridge of reason has been built out of my lived experience that I could not do it on my own. And you seem happy and you have an answer and I've got nothing. And when I was in my head trying to debate and argue, I was miserable. Maybe there could be something. That is the bridge of reason. And it says the outlines and the promise of capital N, capital L, new land had brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. So imagine that I'm crossing this bridge, and it's over a vast, we'll say maybe sea or lake, and I can see the outline of this new land. Now, this new land, what is it? Capital N, capital L. That new land is also known as the fourth dimension of existence. That new land is the place of the spiritual awakening, the spiritual experience, what is promised to each and every one of us in step 12. And we'll notice that we are at step 2. And I can't make out all of what is there in that new land. I can't see all of it. There's a mist and there's a fog. But I can hear your voices. You know, the outlines and promise of new land. And it says, we were grateful that friendly hands had stretched out in welcome. So it is those of you who have recovered, those of you who have found the solution, those of you who are carrying this message. That is those friendly hands that are stretched out in welcome, that are saying, come, take this leap of faith, join us in this new land. And again, at the second step, I don't know what it looks like. I can't define it. I can't fully see it, but I can see it in you. You see, a lot of times we get stuck and tripped up over the second step because I think I got to have my spiritual experience on step 2. I think I got to figure out God. I just got to figure out the spirit of the universe, even though high school calculus was a little too much for me. You know what I'm saying? But I'll figure it out. And I get stuck in that intellectualizing this process. I get stuck, and we're going to talk about leaning on reason. But you see, my reason is an insufficient higher power. My reason, my logic is insufficient. You know how I know? Because I use my logic and my reason to get sober, but my logic and reason could not keep me sober. All the logic that I had, all the reason that I had to not take that first drink was washed away by the power of the mental obsession, that tide that would take all my reason, all my logic, all my willpower, all my desire, all my need, and sweep it away. And I'd take that first drink. So my reason is an ineffective higher power. And in the second step, I don't need to know God. I don't need to define God. I don't have to like God. I can have religious trauma. I can have baggage. I can have pain. I can have suffering. And all in the second step I need to do is lay that aside and take that leap of faith. Now, I'm going to be honest, because we talk about laying aside our old ideas, laying aside our preconceived notions. We're not doing that for very long. We're going to pick that stuff back up in step 4. Because when I would hear, just lay it aside, and it's like, but I have these questions, or I have this pain, I have this suffering, how do I get free from it? The 4th step begins that process. And the time between step 2 and step 4 is pretty quick. So I'm not laying this stuff aside for long. I'm laying it aside just long enough to believe. Could there be a solution? A solution that I don't have, a solution that maybe I don't understand, a solution that maybe I don't like, but a solution that seems to be working in your life. And that answer, that belief that there could be an answer for somebody like me is what brings that luster to those tired eyes, that shine, that glimmer of hope, and that fresh courage to flagging spirits. And it is only when I see that hopelessness will I grab a hold of that hope. It says, we were grateful that our reason had brought us so far, but somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support. Leaning on reason, leaning on logic that wasn't strong enough to hold me up, but it brought me to this point, and that is far enough. But I have to take a leap of faith. And so again, when we talk about faith, I think a lot of times we think faith looks a certain sort of way, you know? I think, for example, I talk a lot about willingness. And I know for me, for a long time, I thought willingness looked like, oh boy, I can't wait to do that. I'd love to write inventory. A 5th step, delightful. Amends to my ex, wonderful. I can't think of anything I'd rather do than that, you know? That's not what willingness looks like. Willingness looks like I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it anyways. Willingness looks like I don't think it'll help, but I'm going to do it anyways. Willingness looks like I'm confused, I'm uncertain, I'm scared, but I will do it anyways. And that is faith, doing it anyways. Faith is often, we sort of often think, or I have often thought that faith was that I had a belief or that I was growing. But faith, what it really is an open hand. An open hand that is willing to have a new experience. That is faith. And so can I reach out? And what am I reaching out to? I'm going to be reaching out to these 12 steps with an open hand, willing to have a new experience. The prejudices and my old ideas really are rooted in that couldn't work, that couldn't help. It doesn't apply to me. The open hand is maybe I'll give it a try. That is faith. And so it goes on to say, when we talk about faith, a lot of times we talk about, man, I had no capacity for faith. And that's what we're going to see in this next paragraph. That was natural, but let us think about it a little more closely. Without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? For did we not believe in our own reasoning? Did we not have confidence in our ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we had been faithful abjectly. And abjectly means in a way that allows no hope. So we were hopelessly faithful to the capital G, capital R, God of reason. So in one way or another, faith had been involved all the time. And what we're saying is, when the book Alcoholics Anonymous meets us where we're at, it does not expect perfection. It meets me in this doesn't apply to me. It meets me in my unwillingness. It meets me in my resistance. And what it's saying is that, I have no capacity for faith. And the book is coming to where we're at and saying, this is where you've had capacity for faith. You had faith in your own reason and your own logic, despite how flawed it was, Paige. Calling me out, rude. But deeper than that, there was not a time in my life that I came to the God of alcohol without absolute faith that power would not relieve me of the pain that I was feeling. I worshiped at the altar of alcohol. And so when it says you have no capacity, when I talk about I can't have faith, I can't believe in that which I do not see. Man, there was not a time in my life that I did not worship at the altar that was alcohol. I have the capacity for faith. And it goes on to talk about, we found too that we had been worshipers. What a state of mental goose flesh that used to bring on those mental goose pimples, Had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, things, money, and ourselves? In my life, did I not worship the job? Did I not worship the relationship? And I always like to make the joke, Mr. Right, and he might not have been Mr. Right. He might have been Mr. Right now. And in my case, he might not have even been Mr. Right now. He was Mr. Right out of jail, But I would worship at the altar of my codependency. I would worship at the altar of if I make this much money. I would worship at the altar of if I get this promotion, get this job, have this car, get the iPhone, get this, get that. If you like me, I would worship at those altars. And then it talks about with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or the flower. And it speaks about love. When it says, I have no capacity to believe in something I cannot see. Have we not believed in the power of love? You can't see a lot of time. Well, you can't see love in the exact same way that you can't see God. You can't see that force, but you can see the result of that force. And you can and you can feel the presence of that force. It's that same sort of idea. And those of you who have had children, you probably know that sometimes, you get why hamsters would eat their kiddos. You're like, oh, it's not logical to love them because they did this or they did that. And yet that love pervades. And so how do I take that leap of faith? I hold the light of this book up to my lived experience. Has there been any experience in my life of a power beyond myself? Can I believe those who have recovered that there has been a power that has worked in their life? Is that possible? And if my answer is yes, then I cannot say God is nothing. I must say that God is. And if God is, then God is everything. And so what is this new land? What is this new land that I'm after? Because at step 2, I don't know what that new land is. But we begin to see and to get glimpses of that new land. I'll bounce us around a little bit. I got to go quickly because I know I don't have too much time left. But what I want to have a look at is on page 68. We dive into fears. And so at 68, we've begun to look at our resentments. Began to see them in a new way. Now we begin to have a look at our fears. And this is a promise that comes true in the middle of step 4. It says, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us, and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. And that is a promise. So the pain and the suffering and the trauma and the tough things that are going on in my life, if I rely on this power and do what I believe this power would have me do, spoilers, the 12 steps, that calamity will be matched with serenity. We begin to get a glimpse of this new land. Let's dive over. Page 75, 5th step promises. It talks about once we do this, 5 minutes, I got you, girl. Eye on the time. Illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken the step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, capital B, capital H, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. And the new land becomes clearer. And maybe I'm setting foot on that new land. And then we can pop over to the 9th step promises. Now, I won't go through all of them. But as a result of making amends, see that it is the action that allows me to take that leap of faith. It is the action that takes me to that new land, to that 4th dimension of existence, to that spiritual experience. The 9th step promises, they talk about how, I'm not regretting my past. I'm not wishing to shut the door on it. I will comprehend the word serenity. I will know peace. My experience, no matter how far down the scale I've gone, I will see how my experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. That's what we're talking about, that new land. And in the 10th step promises, the thought to drink is removed. It is taken from me. It is gone. As a result of the actions I continue to take on a daily basis, I live in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I have not even sworn off. And in step 12, man, we have got step 12 promises, and it talks about how life will take on new meaning. It'll talk about how, like, this is some of the most powerful years of our life, that ability to recover, to watch others recover, to see loneliness vanish, man, as well as that permanent sobriety. If I want that permanent sobriety, I got to do this. And I got to do this as a way of life, like my life depends on it. But if I do that and I carry this message, it tells me I will experience that immunity. And that's what I need. And then in the step 10 promises, it also, later on, page 100, it talks about the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have imagined. And that, better than anything I could have imagined, that is what the new land looks like. But in step 2, I can't imagine the new land. I don't see it. I haven't touched it. I haven't looked at a globe or an atlas. I haven't done those old, like, travel, I haven't watched some travel vlogs on it. But I hear your experience, that you've been there, that you live there, that you experience it. And in the second step, all I need to believe is that you've been there and that you live there. And if I do what you do, I will experience what is laid out in this book. If I follow the directions in this book, I will be able to take that leap of faith, and I will land safely and securely in God's hands, safely and securely in the new land. And I will be able to have my hand stretched out for those who need it most. Thank you for the opportunity to share.